Okay, we've already pretty much gone through this, but if you have a look, I've highlighted the important things, right? And what we're actually really doing is we want to figure out how many days they're in England, right? When they're not on the bus trip, because they're going to spend that much per day there. We've got to figure that out. Huia earns this much a week and saves this much. So to figure out how much Huia saves every week, that's all we're doing. Mike earns this much and saves 30%, 35% every week. So we're just figuring out that. And air tickets is this plus GSC. So we got to add the 15% to there. And the bus trip costs this much. It's in pounds. So we need to figure it out in New Zealand dollars. So that's going to get us the total cost of the trip and also the total savings per week, Mike and Huia added together. And so then we got to figure out how many weeks they're going to need to do to save to get the total cost. Now it's important to remember with these kind of problems is there's not always the exact, not everyone's going to get the exact same answer. For example, the time in England is 3 months. I've assumed that 1 month is 4 weeks, right? Sorry about that shakiness. 1 month is 4 weeks. So if I do that, 3 times 4, that's going to be 12 weeks. I could have assumed that 1 month is 30 days. So 3 months is 3 times 30. So that's 90 days. So it's a bit different. But because I've assumed 1 month is 4 weeks, right? 4 times 12, 12 weeks. And the time on the bus is 3 weeks. So the time not on the bus is 12 minus 3, so 9 weeks. And because 1 week is definitely 7 days, so 7 times 9 weeks is 63 days. Whereas if I just went 1 month is 30 days, the total was 90. So 3 weeks on the bus is 21 days, so not on the bus is 90 minus 21, which is 69 days. So it's slightly different, okay? Because there's actually a little bit more than 4 weeks in 1 month. Yeah. So you might have done it like this, or you might have done it like this. Your answer is still going to be pretty similar. Anyway, now we know how many days they're not on the bus. Now we can figure out our spending. See, I've got a nice title here. So spending, they're going to spend $240 a day between them when they're not on the bus, which is 63 days. We're not even worrying about that plus to the nearest $20 thing. That's kind of an excellence thing, which I'll talk about in class. So 63 days, $240 between them. So that's for both of them. So it's going to be this much. That's our total spending. All right, so the next thing they're paying for is the plane tickets, right? It's $2,500 plus GST, so that means I need to add GST, which is always 15%. So first I'll find 15% of 2,500, which is 0.15 times 2,500, so that's the GST. That's what gets added on to that cost. So that's why I've gone this plus the GST, which is that much. So that's how much they cost each. So they're both getting one, so of course we need to times that by 2. I've written that down there. So the cost of the tickets is going to be this much. Note, all of the costs for everything, I've put a big red box around. If you don't have a red pen, you can put a big box because these are the things I'm going to add to get my total cost, right? Okay, so the final costs we need to figure out is the bus trip. It costs 2,000 Great Britain pounds per person. So we're going to times that by 2 because there's 2 of them, 4,000 pounds. Now, we know what it says here. 1 New Zealand dollar is 0.4931 Great Britain pounds. So that means going from New Zealand to Great Britain, we're multiplying it by this, right? Because 2 New Zealand dollars would be 2 times that. 10 New Zealand dollars would be 10 times that. We've got it in pounds, so we need to go back that way. So whenever we're doing this kind of thing, we want to write it like this. New Zealand to Great Britain, we multiply it by that. We're going the opposite. Great Britain to New Zealand dollars, because that's what we want to know. So we're going to divide it by that. So that's what we're doing. We're doing it that way. So we've got 4,000 divided by this, and it's going to be this. Note on my calculator, it's a big long decimal, but we want to round it to 2 decimals because money only has dollars and cents. So it's $8,111.94. That's the total bus trip for the both of them. Cool. Now we have the spending, the tickets, and the bus trip. That's all they're spending their money on. So total cost is that plus that plus that. Those three things added together. So it's going to be that. So even if you did something slightly wrong, or you chose a different amount of days, your answer is still going to be around here. So if your answer is not exactly this because you rounded differently or something like that, if it's somewhere near that, that's still going to be okay. You can still end up getting merit if your answer is not exactly the same as my answer, as long as you've explained yourself. I've explained how I got 63 days here, or I've explained how I got 69 days there. So now we need to think about their income. Income is money's coming in, right? So that's their savings per week. So Mike saves $70 per week, and he can save 35% of that. So 35% of that, we just multiply. Don't need to go through that. It costs them that much. That's percentage of, right? Huia can save 2/5 of her money. 2/5 times, because of means times, and we get that much. So the total savings per week, we're just adding those two things together. I didn't bother writing that down because they're right there. So that's how much they get saved per week. So that's their income. So we want to know how many weeks until they get 28,000 whatever dollars, right? So that's going to cost them a bunch of weeks. So we're going to go, how many of those is in this? Because this is their costs, right? So we're going to divide the costs by this, and that gives me about 47.01. Now, they only save once a week, right? So we're actually going to have to go up to 48 weeks, because if we look at 47 weeks, that's 28,975, which is not enough, whereas after 48 weeks of saving, they get 29,592, which is more than enough, which means they have some money left over. Maybe they can have some extra savings. Hurrah! So our final answer, which we'll put in a nice red box, it will take them 48 weeks to save for their trip. Okay? Now this is a merit answer, right? We've got to here. Remember, if these answers weren't exactly the same because you've rounded differently or you've assumed a different number of days, that's okay, as long as you've shown what you're doing is right, and your answer's probably still going to end up kind of similar. It's going to be just a slightly different amount. So this is merit. So if you get to this stage here, this is merit. Remember, to get achieved, you need 3 of the different skills. So if you've done this, that's 2 different things. You figured out that's 3 different things. The percentage increase is a different thing as well. Okay, so 3 different things and you've got achieved. For those wondering about excellence, excellence would be something like, if you're thinking about, we've made this assumption, right, that a month has 12 weeks, but actually maybe this is a better assumption. So we would calculate this as well, and we would compare them. And also remember that spending was to the nearest 20 to the nearest $240. So if you think about that, the different values their spending might actually be, and talk about all of those things. All of that sort of extra thinking is what ends up giving you excellence. But I can talk about that more in the coming periods. But yeah, that's basically a merit answer right there. Note, my working is clear and I've got clear explanations there. This is going to help you to get to merit and excellence, and of course is helpful for Achieve too.